but I mean, it's a nice way of getting spam to you, right? If somebody manages to put some stupid message into an email or the 100 emails that you get as commit messages, then
it happens a lot when you have a guest account on your
What
website
happens?
or something. If you have a guest account on your website or somewhere where people can write messages to you over the website, people sometimes somehow catch the email address from there.
But what does that have to do with CVS here?
That people try to send spam out to. If they hack the spammers, especially, I think.
But you're talking about email, right? You're not talking. You were talking about email, not about CVS commit.
I'm talking about the log the CVS commit messages sent out by email.
Yes.
So it is not. I don't tell anything now. Just don't listen, and because that's the recipe to
I think that the
Just
system managers
managers
are not worried about what is happening to your CVS archive. They don't care about that. They're worried that through the CVS system, people gain access to the system overall and do much worse things.
Exactly.
Sure,
So whether or not they put garbage
yes,
in your account.
but it would take 5 minutes to set up a script that if you feed it a few CVS usernames that are visible on the website or in one way or the other, tries out the 100 most stupid passwords, and number 5 will actually be the one that we are using. and then once that script has has exposed the access data, that person could then just submit a number of messages that takes you a week to clean out. That's hypothetical, but it's not absurd. And unfortunately, there's enough people who enjoy doing that sort of stuff. So I do consider this password a security problem, and also a potential problem for us.
But yet it never happened.
Sure, but
Yes, but
once it happens, it's too late.
I mean, another thing that also never happened is like with Wiki. In order to submit anything, any changes to Wiki, for our Wiki at least, you have to register. And of course, in principle, you can have a spammer who says, I borrow myself an illegal email address for 1 hour, register under this thing for 1 hour, and submit my spam, and that's it. Then I'm offline again for forever. Again, never happened, because it's too much work for a spammer. Spammers are streamlined to do just a single thing.
Yes, but this year I could easily automate.
See, Axel, someone can break into the CVS and maybe then can get access to the system, and it's not uncommon that people use access to the system to actually forward emails and stuff. See, if you are a spammer, or there are other spammers, there's a list of computers which spam, and your emails will not be forwarded. So they are eager to find computers which they can then kind of win and then use to forward their messages to several other computers. So your CVS server can turn into such a computer which runs a very small program which you may not even notice for the first few weeks, and keeps forwarding email messages which are spams. It happened to one of our computers.
With CVS?
No, not with CVS. It was a different business. There was a guest account with guest 1, 2, 3.
I mean, guess 1, 2, 3. We had test 1, 2, 3 with this 1 week I've broken it. Okay. The step from getting CVS access to getting other access to the system is still not necessarily easy, but every now and then there are security vulnerabilities, so that's also not unthinkable.
But is there no way to make CVS secure without? I know we can run it over SSH, but then everyone has to get his own individual account.
No, I mean just use good passwords.
Hmm?
And everybody
it's still sent unencrypted. It's still sent in a text, right?
Okay, if somebody taps into the if somebody taps into the network traffic, then it's still exposed. But that's way less likely than some script stumbling across a script that finds our password very quickly.
But an easy way maybe that there can be a file with the password which can be gzipped, and then that can just be checked out, maybe once a month, once in 6 months. I mean, someone can change the password once every 6 months, gzip the file, put it in the repository, and everybody checks it out at the end of 6 months.
And then also everybody who has access to the anonymous repository can check it out?
No, not the anonymous one.
No, but,
Okay.
but it that doesn't sound good to me.
The
But
anonymous can.
I don't know whether we have to continue that set of discussion, but I do see this as a potential security risk.
It would be extremely easy for us to create a safe password and that 100 people know about it.
But I mean, but our security is not really the issue here, right? I mean, or is this really? That's not a reason to migrate or not to migrate.
No,
No,
it's
no.
not
The only issue is whether system administrator
administrator
consider a CVS to be insecure or not.
It's
Yeah,
also
so
our,
we don't really have this problem. I think Yuri Belokopitov is happy to put CVS here locally onto our...
Right, but then everybody who wants to use, because I don't use CVS for anything else, precisely because of that problem, because I will never be able to get the system administrator down to install CVS. No, it's completely out of the
But you can
question.
also use CVS for SSH, so you could
Yeah, but
do that.
it's sort of suboptimal.
So what do you mean? But you can use the...
Subversion, yeah.
I see two advantages to subversion. One is this, the other is renaming files.
And atomic commits, I think, is
Yes.
also very useful.
So if you are to move, it's better to go to subversion in my opinion.
I'm also
But-
worried about
So I take your point, but I don't understand the logic. Because all the advantages that you just named are also advantages that Mercurial has. So what? There must be
And
other reasons why you think it should be subversion of Mercurial.
Oh, the other one that I don't like is the distributed repository.
I mean, one thing that really was, of course, bad that happened was the fact that our central repository crashed and had to be replaced by the backup, which was 8 days old or something. And that really was a major problem, and I'm still not convinced that this cannot happen again.
Yeah, but maybe we. Yeah. For me, I don't understand very well why we have to change. CS is very simple.
Yeah, but subversion is as simple.
Hmm?
Subversion is as simple. It's not any more complicated.
Okay, we had some problem in the past with the crashes, but maybe one way is to have a more efficient CDS server from using, for example, a mirror of the central repository or something like that. Each 5 minutes, the central repository is copied in another place and something like that. Because changing the word stuff to the SVN or something like that, I'm not sure that it's necessary. Yeah?
I mean that crash certainly was a problem of the backup policy
Yeah, exactly.
and not of the revision control system. So that's that alone should not be the reason.
But if you have a decentralized version, then you also have a problem with the crash, because you still have one main version. And if this crashes, you have
Yes,
But
maybe we can
every-
elaborate in this. Maybe, I mean, I think this could be true. I think that's true. But how would it work in practice? I mean, suppose we had everything under Mercurial, and there was also in this summer school, everybody did a lot of changes during that week, and all of a sudden the central thing is offline forever. Suppose, for example, can one recover from such a situation? How?
I think so. If
probably
every change that went into the central repository is also in a local repository, then we have all the changes, and it should be pretty straightforward to just pull them, or push them to one place, or pull them into the new reconstructed central repository.
I don't feel very well in the distributed repository. For me, that's quite strange. For example, for conflict, I think we will have a lot of conflict with if some people, for example, during 2 weeks I'm working on my local repository, and then I try to commit my change after 2 weeks. I think I will have a lot of conflict.
Basically, it is recommended practice. I mean, this could happen right now as well. If you just work for 2 weeks without committing anything, although you're not so tempted
but we have
to
the
do that.
philosophy that we should commit a lot of time
Yes.
our work. But the local repository, maybe the default is that the bias will be, okay, a lot of people will work locally, and then, oh yeah, I have to commit now. And
Well,
then,
the message is still to commit early and commit often to your local repository. But in addition to that, you should pull the latest changes from the upstream repository. And then if your work goes in parallel with pulling in those changes in the central repository, then you don't have potential for conflict.
So basically, you're basically saying it's sufficient if everybody pulls. But then, suppose if we have, for example, in Toulouse, a big development, everybody pulls, but it never pushes anything for the last 1.5 years. And then in Helsinki, something else. So again, they all pull, and there's from one particular node there locally, and everything is synchronous, and they pull, their situation is completely up to date. And then all of a sudden, somebody pushes, who has never pushed for the last 1.5 years, right? Then it will be a major problem for all the other guys who have never pulled, who have never pushed, right? Because they have done a lot of changes which were compatible with the old version, but now you do something, just swapping files as the order of something, right? Which of course is normally always
you can turn that.
No?
Yeah, they have been renamed, for instance.
You can turn that into a strong incentive for everybody to upload changes often. Like now, I mean, basically it's the same situation. Right now, if you sit on your modifications, sooner or later you'll be in trouble. So you want to get them on the server.
But with the distributed system, you have to take 2 steps, right? First, you have to commit to your local, and then you have to pull and push to the central one. So you actually introduce the second step, which is...
yes, I don't see very well what we mean by distributed repository, except when you are on airplane with 10 hours of flight. Okay, maybe.
You can also do changes, keep them under revision control, and if it turns out that that line of development doesn't make sense, you just remove that repository, that copy of the repository altogether and forget about it. So at every step you can go back in history because it's all committed in many steps to your local repository. And then in the end you can decide whether you want to upload those patches to the central server or not. You cannot do that right now.
Sure, I agree that
But
locally all the log file and history file are on your laptop, and then you can work without internet access. You can follow the history of file and so on. But practically, this case will happen not very frequently.
I'm not sure. I mean, some of the people who use distributed revision control systems, I think they just change their style of working towards that, because you just have to get used to the fact that getting a copy of a repository is something simple, and if the repository is already local on your machine, it's even cheaper disk space because most of the files get hard-linked. So in cases where we would maybe even create branches, although when I hear the word branch in connection with the pencil code, I somehow don't feel very well, because we didn't handle that in the best way in the past. Instead of creating a branch, you would just clone a repository and then work there. And then probably you will be more likely to really try something out and commit substeps of something that you consider experimental than you would do now with CVS or than you would do with Subversion. So I guess to some extent, if the mentality changes, this is more likely to happen. But
maybe it's practical for a small project, but with a project like a pencil code,
the Linux kernel is handled with a distributed revision control system. So they are very large.
That's why there's 700 versions of it. Right? I mean,
okay, now they use SEL.
They use
They're not that many
DIT.
versions.
Which one?
They use DIT.
there's only one.
Oh, but you mean the patched versions, but it's a rather coherent thing, I would say. They're not really forked, but nothing you would call a fork.
Yeah, we have to think very well about that. It's a big change, and we lose a lot of time.
But we also discuss, Subversion is not decentralized, right? Subversion is a centralized version control system, and
I'm also worried about the whole decentralized thing. I don't think we're ready for it. I think maybe it's better to keep us all a little bit more together. I can see it as an answer, but I think for the pencil code, I would rather have people following each other a little bit more than just going in all directions.
All the time I've been using Darks, I'm still waiting for using it in a multi-user setting or anything distributed. Okay.
The good point is the global revision number, version number. That's a good point.
but that's again for the centralized.
Yeah,
for
it's a
the
centralized
version. But that, I don't think really. I mean, if you want a coherent situation of a certain time, you just up from a certain time of the day or night.
Yes, but then if you want to go just before the previous commit, then you start playing around and then you have 5 files changing if you go 2 hours back, and then you still try to figure out, was that one commit or can that even be separated? So I think that's really a fudge.
It's actually very nice if people can have a problem and they can tell you, okay, I'm working with revision number so and so, and they can tell you exactly.
Exactly.
Not as easy.
Oh, but it's annoying. I mean, you have to, okay, when did I check this out, and then CVS up yourself, and then write down the time.
What about time zones? Are they
time zones
or not? It's
and what's the downside? I mean,
I think it's a minor improvement, but certainly.
Yes. What about this one here? For example, all my LaTeX files are in one tree which has to do with text files. Is it then true that if I commit one paper, that everything else also gets a new version number?
yes.
So that means my paper of 2001, which was published, continues getting new version numbers.
well, that makes not so much. It's not a very good choice, probably, to have your whole tech directory under Subversion. But for the pencil code, I'd say it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because it's not finished project, so the pencil code, it's always.
You never submit it.
Everything is being developed.
Attached tree is also not finished project.
Yeah,
But I don't see that as something terrible. I mean, okay, you have to get used to that. It's somewhat weird, but it's so what? So your page from 2001 is getting bumped. The version number is getting bumped up all the time. So what? You do CVS log file, and then you see when the changes are subversion log. It's not whatever. And then you see when the changes occurred. So it's not. I don't think it's a big issue.
Okay. So CV.
Just one question. For you, Gordon, what is the solution? Which solution do you prefer?
I don't think I have a preference. I mean, I'm curious on using Mercurial, but that's not really that shouldn't play a big role in this context,
Isn't it?
unless I'm willing to sort out all the problems we might have with it. It looks to me like subversion would be a good solution if we really want to change. And there are a few things a few points where we definitely gain from moving to subversion.
Or is it a general trend? Simply CVS will be replaced by Mercury? Is that true, or is that just a curiosity for you? Because it is a general trend, so go ahead. No, it's simply if most of the people are interested to move to this version.
Yeah, I don't know any statistics about that. I definitely know that many projects move from CVS to subversion. Whether Mercurial is really that popular, probably it is, but whether that popularity will persist or whether people will then jump onto something yet different, who knows.
So the command is svn, and of course that one does exist on many machines. Oh no, not. Maybe we should also just check on who knows some machines where svn doesn't exist, because that would be a major blow, of course.
I think SVN component probably half of the machines I have.
That's already rather low, right?
It's
And with
Well,
Mercurial?
I don't think that's a very good reason to.
No, maybe not. But it makes it certainly much more intractable.
Well, but then you can never change, right? Probably. Unless you wait 30 years until a new version control system is installed on any big iron Japanese cluster energy.
Yeah, so Mercurial is even rarer, I think, right?
But it might be easier to install. That's something one could find out because it's written in the portable.
There's a more philosophical question about it. I mean, there seem to be 3 different distributed systems.
There's even more, but
Well, there's even more.
we discussed
So it seems not calibrated out, whereas with the CVS, I mean, there's really one CVS that most people were using, and now there's one successor to CVS, so it seems much more established. I mean, Mercurial may be actively developed right now, but I don't know how many developers are there, and if they lose interest or if you stuck with a system which is not being developed anymore.
Yeah, so just wait another 5 years or something, and then there will be, again, a large number of other things, and they're all much more modern, of course. And then everybody will tell you, I mean, this Mercurial, that's now 5 years old, I mean, come on. I mean, how can you use such an old thing? I mean, our CVS is now 20 years old, right? And it actually is still not bad. I mean, it's actually...
what we realize there's major things
Yeah,
that we can't do.
but what's the major... I mean, the links is
moving
fine.
files is
Moving
very hard.
Yeah.
And with the security stuff, right?
the actual symbolic links are also one thing that I think subversion to some extent in Mercurial.
Yeah, that's
And the risk is not very high as far as subversion is concerned, but it will be obsolete in the near future. Because very high profile projects have moved to it, and they are much more concerned about that than we are, probably.
subversion means they use...
Well, that was the point I was trying to make. That subversion at least seems long-term, whereas the long-term investment, the other ones are.
Well, you could interpret the number of distributed projects by the fact that everybody's trying to get away from centralized distribution. But I think that's not true. How about Anders tries to convince the system administrators on that 50% of machines he has access to install subversion, and we see how that works. And if it goes smoothly, then we are confident that we can convince most people, and on the remaining machines we compile it ourselves. And if it doesn't work, then
And maybe we can also try to compile it on those machines, see how difficult it is.
it's easier or better to have system administrators.
Yeah, sure,
to take
but
care of that.
still, if the system administrator is not very helpful, then
Yeah. Just to see how difficult that is.
yeah.
There's one system administrator at my institute who really wants to install such version, so I can ask there to install it on the cluster.
The kit has such a version.
It does already have, but not on the cluster, but on the regular system.
Okay,
also.
okay, yeah.
So
Yeah. Define for the cluster, yeah.
So the other command is called HG, or what?
Yeah.
Simply HG. Here on a Finnish machine, that HG not found, but SVN is found, of course. And if we go to
There's probably not many machines where material is already installed of these computing machines. I would guess.
okay, right. I see. And so as far as and it uses only the port, the SSH port.
The version?
Yeah.
No, if you run SVN server, it uses its own port and its own protocol.
I mean, one of the
But-
problems that we had is the only problems really downside from CVS was that you come to machines where the system administrator, like in Heidelberg, says I close every port except SSH. That's strict policy. This is Dr. Tremmer from Heidelberg. I'm Mr. Tremmer, and I close every port because I have so much experience and so right.
yeah, but he's also retired now.
As long as he's not retired, I'm Mr. Trummer, and I close every port, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then it still wouldn't work.
Actually, I was just thinking you can use port forwarding. I mean, can you use port forwarding in order to access a remote HTTP server? I mean, can you go through
Would even outgoing HTTP be closed on that
But
machine?
I think this was just one person. I mean, did you ever experience anything so extreme before when you came to?
Yeah, there's one price in QM, Queen Mary College. It also doesn't work, of course.
Well, CBS, but I mean one
Because our ports are
I
closed.
cannot imagine.
including
anyone-
HTTP.
I could not imagine
No,
anything.
probably not.
That again is something that is way easier to achieve when you're negotiating with the system administrator, that you need outgoing HTTP.
That's what I don't know what that exactly means. For one thing I know, for example, if we wanted to move to view streaming movies of this recording, for example, at QMW, it wouldn't work because the system administrator says movies, looking at a scientific institute looking movies, that's not allowed. So looking at this movie is not allowed in QMW. That's so what happens in that case?
I think that's other ports. Well, but there's a number of programs that use HTTP for communication. So, and I think just to say, I think we could set up HTTP and SVN serve in parallel. So to pull stuff from the server, you only need to go through HTTP. If you want to upload stuff, you use that special port, and then in the worst case, you have to try to get your changes somewhere else via rsync or whatever. But at least that's progress compared to the situation where you can't even get the code without.
You sure about that?
No, I will need to check.
Doesn't Skype use HTTP?
What?
Doesn't Skype use HTTP?
Skype.
Skype?
Probably.
Because
But then at
there
a
are-
scientific institute, Skype? No.
But there are
Not with
stuff.
these people.
I actually don't know where Skype didn't work. I'm actually not sure that I tried Skype at QMW.
Use
It does work.
HTTP at the end,
What?
It does work.
Yeah, I think so too, yes.
That's why I asked him.
Yeah, right. Okay, anything else?
I mean, could we make a test SVN repository?
I guess we could. But if we
We're not,
If-
you're
if-
totally
if-
serious, right?
No, I'm trying
if
to
we only do test commits that are not supposed to end up in the current CVS
It
repository,
would only
then
be for people to
certainly.
check out if they could all get there
And
within
to-
a week, have SVN set up everywhere.
And to play with checking in, but not really in, with the idea that change makes it to the central repository. As I said, that one might be even able to do that two-way, but I try to avoid that. But just cloning the current CVS repository as a subversion repository should not be difficult.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. Also with the CVS to SVN.
For which repository? For your own one? Or?
No, for the principal.
Yeah. Now, by the way, that means, I mean, if you're really serious, we should synchronize first of all with the current completely, right?
Synchronize what?
I mean, for example, he has his global solver not checked in, of course, for half a year, right? So suppose now you change everything to subversion and you happen to show your thing.
Before we do the move, people would be strongly recommended to upload their changes or to forget about them.
If we use CVS to SVN, then is it possible that we do it now and then someone submits something to CVS 5 days later and then we do it again and things are fine?
Yes,
It's thinkable, but I don't know.
I mean, it really means we should.
Is it possible to go the other way around, SVN to CVS?
Yeah.
In case we change our mind?
With Taylor, I guess you can. Yes.
But you may actually lose certain things, which would be interesting to see what you actually lose.
Yeah, but I think taking a step like this and already preparing the step back is psychologically a benefit. It doesn't mean we should burn all bridges behind us, but
I mean, that sounds like a proposal. I mean, but what is, okay, so they're basically saying we should maybe try it overnight. And then, I mean, then we have to do it probably now, right? And it doesn't matter, also it's not exactly related to the Denmark thing, by the way, because the HTTP address is probably going to be mirrored. I mean, .dk and .org can be used interchangeably. The reason why we changed the name of the root was also because nobody should ever access the old one, which was not up to date for 8 days, because then you would potentially lose your material without realizing that. But whereas now you would always see it wouldn't actually work.
So do you have a public HTML directory on that machine? Where you are now, so would that subversion clone of the pencil code repository be accessible for all of us?
I can make it accessible.
You can make it by Denmark.
That would be great.
I mean, you can make it by Denmark. I mean, right. What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by what?
I mean, are you saying that the server should be your laptop or what?
No, I'm converting the repository on the CVS server now, on cvs.nordita.uk.
Yes. Right, and then and what do we need to do to make it available?
Well, either they put it in a public directory on that machine.
I think you need CGI rights for that, so it may or may not work. But in the worst case, we'll have to ask Peter.
We can just call Peter perhaps straight away.
All right, but one can also.
Any serious concerns about this? Is now an experiment, really. So I suggest that if anybody has possible. I mean, maybe we should. I mean, we should not do a serious jump. We should really have an experimental version until either tomorrow or the day after.
And then we can make a poll and see how many people successfully managed to check out the SVN.
Yes, and how quick was it to learn actually SVN? Because many of us have not used SVN before. And so then we will make a serious jump, if you make it, at a time which is then announced to everybody. Which is probably outside the Council's meeting.
Yeah, I guess
People should have logged
Okay. So now we have spent a lot of time. I think we should do your talk and your talk after for this part 2 of